So today I want to answer this question, which is, why do I always feel like I'm being watched? So I've got three psychological explanations. The first one is the evolutionary perspective. The second, I will look at the research on sleep paralysis. And then thirdly, we'll just look at the role of anxiety, fear, and suggestibility, which it's almost like the thread throughout the three. Okay, so let's look at the evolutionary perspective. One of the most well-known theories behind this idea of this feeling of being watched, even when there's nobody there, is that we all have this agency detection mechanism, which is actually hyperactive for some people. This theory suggests that humans evolved to be sensitive to detecting agents, and an agent is something that has intentions. And this is especially important for us in ambiguous situations. So situations where we're not quite sure what's going on, we have this default setting that says it's probably dangerous. So some researchers have also claimed to have demonstrated that we have an ability to detect when somebody is staring at us, even when we don't see them. This detection mechanism, where we can feel that somebody's watching us, even if we can't see them, is thought to have given us an evolutionary advantage in that if we were very sensitive at perceiving danger, then we would be less likely to be caught by surprise, and we would therefore survive longer. So we're basically hardwired to think that any strange sound, noise, or movement is a threat until we've got some way of explaining why it's not a threat. Okay, so we kind of like run first and explain it later. So this survival mechanism, it persists today, and it can lead us to perceive an unseen watcher even when no one's there. This is why feeling watched in like a dark house or an empty forest, or if you're walking the streets at night, it's easy to feel like somebody's there or somebody's closing in on you. And this is basically our brain over-interpreting environmental cues. Because the environmental cues can be kind of ominous, then we get a sense and we feel that as well. And this also ties into something called pareidolia, where people can perceive meaningful patterns like faces or figures in just random things. Think about the old Jesus toast that was getting sold on eBay. So shadows, reflections, and random noises can all be interpreted as threats even when they're not. Another major contributor to the research on feelings of being watched comes from research on sleep paralysis. Now, this sleep paralysis occurs when a person is partially awake, like they're waking up, but they're still actually temporarily unable to move because their muscles are in a state of atonia, which is a process whereby your muscles relax completely when you're in certain stages of sleep so that you don't act out your dreams. So waking up while your muscles are still in this paralyzed state can be really scary and is often accompanied by an ominous feeling, like you feel like you're not alone and that actually something or someone has control over your body. And sometimes this can turn into a full-on hallucination. The most common visual experience in episodes of sleep paralysis is that of the intruder hallucination, because many people get it. Depending on your culture, it depends on how you explain what it is. Some people call it demons, some people will say it's spirits or witches. But one thing that's really interesting is that no matter what culture or country, people often describe it physically as being very similar, which is usually like a tall, dark, skinny figure. But from a psychological perspective, what's actually happening is that the brain is trying to explain what's happening. It's trying to explain both the inability to move and the fear that this is inciting. And it does this by creating an illusion of a presence. And people interpret this based on the beliefs that they have. So, for example, many ghost stories or like old folklore often stem from sleep paralysis experiences. And people who strongly believe in paranormal, like ghosts and things like that, are much more likely to give it a supernatural interpretation. Okay, so the thing that ties both of those explanations together is the presence of anxiety or fear. Psychological studies show that anxiety and stress and suggestibility can play a huge role in this feeling of being watched. So when people feel anxious, And this can happen from environmental cues or generally by being just someone who is a bit anxious, or if you're generally more cautious than other people, you like to plan and you worry a little bit more than some people you know, then you might have a higher than average level of trait anxiety. And so this would make you more susceptible to that threat detection mechanism that I was talking about before. And it makes you more prone to misinterpreting normal sights and sounds as something more ominous, or there's somebody there, somebody's watching. So studies also show that priming can really increase your likelihood of feeling watched. And priming is when you're exposed to something that influences the way that you will think and act in the situation that follows. Just like how exposure to ghost stories, horror movies, or eerie environments can make you think that every rustling noise is some kind of robber or freaky Jason. So, for example, when researchers placed people into unfamiliar rooms that are dark, the people that were told ghost stories before they went in were much more likely to report feeling watched while they were in there. So those people that didn't get told the creepy stories were just less likely than those who were to feel watched or to feel creeped out when they were in those dark rooms. For example, if you have a belief in the paranormal, then that belief will make you more susceptible to that illusory agency detection mechanism that I spoke about earlier, which is the tendency to sense that harmful presence as a default response. So when we take people into places that we've convinced is like a haunted house, those people are more likely to feel those feelings of being watched, even when that place has never been reported as being haunted by anybody before, and we've just basically told them that it was. So there you have it, 3 psychological explanations that hopefully answered the question, why do I always feel like there's someone watching me? So this is a different topic than having a fear or a phobia of being watched. So if that's something that you're interested in, keep an eye out for new releases of my videos, because I'm going to try to answer all kinds of interesting psychological questions. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.